welcome back. This is going to be part 2 of our interview with Jessica Martinez, the 2020 candidate for the District 1 representative for the Whittier City Council. And I believe we left off on parking.
Yes.
Now, as you know, the City Council for some reason is getting a lot of slack for the new parking structure that's being built. It's been planned for like the last few years, so it's not something that they just came up with. But the only thing that held it off, and the only reason they're doing it now is because they just got the funding for it. And there are some complaints that most of the parking has already been reserved for workers at PIH who also have the other shelter. And we also have a lot of public parking facilities in Whittier. But the problem is that the city does not allow any overnight parking for residents. So a business can use it during the daytime, but as soon as the business closes, it's like the city shuts down the parking lot. So that, I mean, isn't that something that we could give a permit, sell permits to the residents to let them park there overnight to help alleviate some of the overcrowded parking?
Well, I think that that's a very interesting proposition, and I think that that would be a good thing, actually, to bring in revenue to the city. Because if we want to bring revenue into the city, I think that would be a good way to do it as well. So I agree with you there.
Okay, perfect. Let's see. We covered that. Finance. I have to cover finance.
Oh no.
As you know, our city, this isn't the first time that we've had a deficit. We've had deficits before, except that the difference this time, like the last few times I ran, back in the 90s, we've had this problem, and then the last time they said there was a deficit, and each time previously they've always come back and said, oh, well, we magically made the deficit go away because we found money from here and there's no deficit anymore. Oh, and by the way, we're running for re-election. This is the first time that I have not been able to do that. I just want to get your thoughts on that. How would you deal with the financial crisis?
Well, if, I don't know, that's something, how big of a deficit do we have? Right. Are there things that we can cut, services that we can cut? What is any of the fat in the budget that needs to be cut? I think that needs to be looked at first.
Okay.
So.
Because right now they're cutting into the way they're covering everything right now is that they're using the reserves, but from what I was told, there's only $7 million left in the reserves now, which means that next year they're not going to have enough to cover the stuff that they're covering this year. So if you're elected, you're going to have to work with them to find some extra source of money, and I think that's part of what Measure W is going to help cover, but I don't think it's going to cover all of it, though.
Right.
So eventually, there'll have to be some cuts somewhere, but I know that the unions are opposing it, the workers are opposing it, and some of the supporters of the public employees are opposing it with everything they've done. In fact,
as far as opposing Measure W?
Correct. This last poll that we did, we had the voters rate the candidates, and well, just to give you an example, on homelessness, you pretty much got the second highest score on homelessness. So people, because right now the highest score for that went to Robo because of his work with the police department. But if he wasn't in the race, you'd probably be number one on that. Also and that's on handling the homeless. On crime, again, second highest. But on finance, the same thing. You're almost tied with them. And then it also says on here that you're the most business friendly, according to the voters. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's wonderful. I'm glad
you're in the top. You're in the top too.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you're there. But I'll say this: if we don't have a thriving business community here, then we don't have those taxes that are coming into the city as a result of business. We don't have the dollars that are spent by the employees of those businesses here in the community. I'm sure that some of the businesses, well, it's not a business, but the court building, it reopened.
But it brings business because they come over here and they do the shopping and they're eating.
Exactly. So I believe that if we can bring more businesses here but that sell the higher priced items, more car dealerships, more things that
Yes.
people actually spend
I,
a lot
I,
of
I
money
heard you
on.
mention that at the last candidate forum.
Mhm.
In fact, a couple of candidates have mentioned to me the idea of trying to get Apple to bring an Apple store to Whittier. Is that something that you would support?
I think any business that could come into Whittier and bring in extra dollars, I think would be a good idea. I prefer some of our old town businesses here. I really like our small business owners, and I'd like to see them thrive. But I also think
You'd like to, so basically you would like to bring in more people to encourage them to shop at local mom and pop stores.
yes.
Okay, I've had a few candidates mention that also. Um, so, how would you go about doing that? And we also used to have a thriving tourism industry, which took a big hit. So, as far as bringing in more businesses, and also in that same vein, bringing back more tourists, because we do have a lot of historical sites, we do have sites of interest. How would you do that on the council?
Well, I think we can market our city a little bit more than what it has been marketed, to the general public. But also, I would offer incentives and cut maybe some regulations. I think we can look over some of our regulations and find out where they're really too restrictive and where they're. I know that Whittier has a very good record with businesses, that it's a business-friendly
yes.
community. But I think we could do more.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. It is business-friendly community. They've gotten so many awards for it over the years. I want to transition it to another area that's similar, and it deals with Uptown. As you know, I don't know, have you been to the top of the parking structure that we have?
No.
No. What about the top of the Helmet Trail?
I can't say that I have. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
not a hiker.
well, you know what? If you go to the top of either, the parking structure is probably closer. But if you go to the top and you look around, you won't see the city of Whittier. All you'll see is thousands of trees. So, and here's why I'm bringing this up is because we have thousands of trees in Whittier. We're known as Tree City, USA. We used to have a sign at our entrance over on Beverly Boulevard, and there was a controversy a while back, and I guess there still is kind of,
Yes.
about part of the Uptown specific plan that was approved was about eliminating some of those trees and planting new ones that were less messy, if you will. And my question to the other candidates was, well, wait a minute, we got thousands of trees in Whittier, so what's the difference if we cut down 10 or 12 in Uptown and replace them? Because we still have the other trees. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think if we need to cut down trees, it should be for a good reason. I mean, trees are beautiful. They provide shade. People enjoy them. I remember one year where there was a really big, beautiful fir tree that was across the street from me. This is some years ago. And I guess it was a problem with, some of the trees dying. So rather than, actually send for a tree doctor, I guess, to find out if the tree is healthy, they just cut down the tree. Now, I had made the mistake of signing the petition to get the city to look at it. Well, my shade is gone. But anyway, and it's taken like years, and the tree's still not up to
It does
par.
take years.
But
yes.
I'll say this. I love trees. I think that they're great. They're beautiful. But if a tree is causing a problem, I think we should find out if all the trees are healthy, number one, before we start cutting them down.
So we used to have we used to have city arborists, and when the budget had to be cut, they were the first to be cut. And a lot of people were saying that that's why we had the incident of I believe it was a year or two back at Penn Park with the tree falling over, because
I remember that.
we didn't have a regular arborist. So when that happened, they had to hire an arborist special to go up there and take a look at the other trees, because they fired all the arborists just to save money.
Wow.
So would you bring back the arborists, or how would you go about that?
Well, I think it would be a good idea maybe to have a contractor, but now it might be hard to do that because of AB 5.
Tell me about AB 5.
Well, that has to do with the contractors that it was only going to affect the Uber drivers,
Oh yes,
the whole
but then it
Uber-
affected everybody.
It's
And
affecting actors, actresses, singers. I mean, you name it. It's affecting a lot of people who are just private contractors. So I don't know. I think maybe it might be a good idea to have a contract with, an arborist. So
okay. In the same vein, since it's in the same issue area, I don't know how old you are. I'm about 46. When I was in school in the 80s, one of the things that we would talk about was the electric cars, the flying vehicles, and you remember the charging stations, and that's what they were talking about. It's like, yeah, that's how your road's going to be like. Here we are, 30, 40 years later, and none of that's happened, and now they're telling that same thing to the next generation. And my concern there is, well, wait a minute. It didn't happen during ours, so as a council member, what would you do to promote, let's say, electric vehicles, hybrids, or even encourage developers to include solar power on their developments in Whittier?
well, I'll say this. I'm not too sure that electric vehicles are actually the best thing to go forward. Primarily because if we're looking long term into the future, what about the disposal of those batteries that we're using?
That's
All
a
of
good
this high tech equipment. For example, I just read an article that had to do with the renewable energy. We're going to erect these windmills. Well, now